Submitting the thesis. There's a thesis lodgement form signed by you that this is your work, signed by your supervisor saying that it is ready for examination, and signed by the college. The census dates are important in making a decision about whether someone needs to re-enroll or not, and then the whole fees issue comes up. That's the end of March and the end of August. If you miss that date, you must be enrolled in the next session. That's a federal government rule that we have no control over. I think we've already mentioned how many copies. That was 3 altogether. Hopefully you will only need to send out 2. And of course the final check and signature. No copy stains on anything either, please. In the last months you may have to renegotiate the role with your supervisor. Are you going to be, what sort of arrangements are you going to have for the meetings? What's going to be the role of the panel members? Are they going to be taking on different aspects of the candidature? Very carefully looking at the time and having realistic expectations, being kind to yourself and allowing enough time for each particular stage. So what are the results when your examination finally comes back? The first one is option A, award the degree. This means that the degree is awarded outright. You don't have to do a thing, not even one little tiny editorial change. Option R means some rewriting. That can be a little or a lot. It might be a page of typos and small things that can be addressed with probably in an hour or so. Or it might mean substantial rewriting. Don't differentiate between those two outcomes. Option X is re-examination. If one of the 2 examiners does not recommend re-examination and says pass the thesis and re-examination is sought by the university, it won't go back to that first examiner. Re-examination is only by the person who asked for it. And when supervisors and the university is considering examiners' reports, they don't just take an average or say, oh, one said it's okay, so we don't need to take any notice of the other person. They actually look through every particular argument on an academic basis, and just because one examiner doesn't mention something doesn't mean that it can be discounted. So it's a very considered response. Option F, fail, very, very rarely used, seen. I think perhaps I've seen it once or twice asked for in 20 years of my role. So don't be frightened of that one. Actually, your thesis is very unlikely to go out unless it's really ready for examination and you are going to pass. So just let's have a look at the results comparatively over the last few years. You can see that in the last, little less than a decade, we've had a big increase in the number of people who are awarded the degree outright. Of course, just because the person gets an option A, it doesn't mean that that's a better thesis than the one that had an option R initially or even an option X. It's not a qualitative thing. It's not a graded reflection of the standard of the work. It's just saying whatever is required to bring it up to pass level. But 38% without having to make changes is a good reflection on students and supervisors. The few persisting examinations that require another examination, hanging around about 5%, I think personally I believe reflects poor examiner choice. I can't stress enough the importance of this. And if you're locked in with an examiner who's not the best one, you're stuck then with the result that they give to you. Addressing the reports, initially your supervisor will be asked to do this in confidence without speaking to you initially. To respond to all of the comments in a tabular format is helpful. To give an overall recommendation and have extremely clear instructions if there's an re-examination sought, because the next examination will be conducted exactly on the points raised that were given to you in the rewriting and no other points. If the result's unclear, the university can appoint an additional examiner or an arbiter. That's been used a few times with a good result. They can invite the examiners to confer or ask for further examination, so they're not the preferred options, and I haven't seen either of those options used in the past many years. There's a lot of literature around about examiners, and we'll have some references to that elsewhere in the module, particularly the work of Margaret Kiley and Jerry, I can't think of his name. Jerry Mullins. Opening the black box, how examiners assess your thesis, and a particularly good one. I'm sorry while I'm shuffling here, I just want to make sure that I mention it. It's a PhD, not a Nobel Prize, how experienced examiners assess research theses. That's a marvellous little piece of work, and it says that examiners have their own method. They know what a doctorate is, and they don't need us giving them bits of paper with boxes to tick. They understand what it's all about. They're reluctant to fail. They get very angry with universities and supervisors if they think that substandard work is being sent out. They've got their own method, and they often think that sloppy writing is indicative of sloppy thinking, so that, you hear people sometimes say, I don't worry too much about minor editorial changes, or fix them up later. Well, they do count. You need to get them right. The other thing that Margaret has written is you don't want a smart aleck selecting examiners to assess doctoral dissertations, and this one explains the importance of that knowledge that your supervisor will have. Oh, this is something that I wanted to end with. This is taken from an examiner report at UWS, and it's delightful, and you can use this sort of comment in your CV. It would be lovely. I'm quite impressed by every aspect of this work, and I learned a great deal from reading it. And I must congratulate the student. It is without doubt one of the most interesting and provocative PhD theses I've read in 20 years. That's a lovely commendation. I hope that's on your examiner's report. If you have any questions, please send me an email. If I don't know the answer, I'm bound to know who can help you. Bye-bye.